back, everybody, to this week of Galactic Reviews. This past week, we all got together. Wait, no, we didn't get together. We all decided to watch separately together as a joint decision to watch the movie The Green Knight that came out within the past month or so. This movie is a modern retelling of an Arthurian poem. It depicts King Arthur's energetic, adventurous nephew in his search for glory and honor and fame as a knight. And he gets sent on this journey to go meet this Green Knight who shows up out of nowhere one Christmas Eve in the movie with a challenge saying, whoever so takes up this challenge against me, if they land a blow on me, whether it's a scratch or a fatal blow, will return to the Green Chapel. I think it's like 3 days journey west or something, and will receive the same blow in a year's time. So he takes up, Sir Gawain, Arthur's nephew, takes up the challenge and just lops his head right off. And so the following tale ensues as he goes to find the Green Knight a year later, and a whole bunch of whack stuff happens along the way.
All right, first off, I'm not here to tell you you're wrong, Andrew. It was actually 6 days north.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I didn't have my script in front of me.
It wasn't actually important at all.
It's not important, but I'm gonna correct you right now.
But that's not the point. Biggest question I have for this movie is the question of why.
You're gonna ask whoever wrote it in the 14th century, who we don't know who it was. We don't know the origin.
The thing is, I was talking to Clayton about this movie. He's read the epic poem, and he had to write a paper on it. He said he enjoyed the epic poem, but walked out halfway watching this movie in the theaters because he said it's so bad. I haven't read the epic poem. I don't know if you have, Payson. I know you talked about it, but I'm going to assume, but you know what happens when people assume. I'm just going to assume here that it's not written or pictured as the same way as it is in the epic poem.
It's not.
I'm going to just take a wild swing and say they're completely different entities. They have the same baseline structure, but that's it.
Yeah, that's about the best way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the difference between an adaptation and a retelling.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to assume, but yeah, other than that, I was mostly asking myself questions through the whole movie and confused the whole time. So with that being said, I'm going to give this movie a 1 because I was just so confused.
I've got another one in my back pocket that's even worse. I'll let you know.
Okay, if you show me something worse, I'll give this movie a 2.
Like Zach, I did ask a lot of questions of why and a lot of stuff for this movie. There was just so many things where it was questionable as to why they chose that certain subplot to happen or that little scene to happen that had nothing to do with anything going on. And I thought it was okay-ish at first for the cinematography. Only one bad CGI thing that I could really spot, and that was the fox in some scenes. But other than that, everything else CGI wise seemed okay. Thought it was okay. And then I read the synopsis of the poem, just wanting to know what they based this off of, because I was confused as heck from this movie as to why they chose certain narrative points. And yeah, I was fairly disappointed in it after reading that, because I was like, that seemed way better than what I watched. But before reading the thing, I would have given it like a 4. And after reading the thing, I'm going to give it like a 2, just because it is not that good after reading the thing.
I went into this movie viewing it as how I knew it was. I knew it wasn't, and I only learned about the poem afterward, but I kind of viewed this like an Alice in Wonderland movie. I didn't go into it expecting everything to make sense. I knew this was an Arthurian tale, and it was about this knight trying to find fame in this sort of mythical land where these weird tales just kind of happen. I gave it a 6. It's not my typical genre of movie, but I love any film that A24 puts out simply because of how well it is directed and filmed and orchestrated and acted. All of those points are always good, whether the writing is up to it. I always appreciate what they can do on the screen, but it was just long. It was also a long movie.
Oh yeah, and you can feel it in this one. I will say that.
But I enjoyed it as a piece of film, and I did have this sense of kind of like, what are they going to throw at me next? Because I put this on similar weirdness levels as like I would Alice in Wonderland, and I love Alice in Wonderland, and Alice in Wonderland doesn't make sense. And a lot of times it got me thinking like, wow, I was thinking it throughout the whole movie, like, wow, this is a lot like how Alice in Wonderland feels, or certain adaptations of Alice in Wonderland feels.
Yeah, it was the biggest part for me was the very beginning of the movie. It just threw you right into it, and I was just confused the whole way through from there. I got the underlying plot and the driving force of the movie. I did enjoy. It's just the how he went out just even though he knew he was gonna die pretty much, and
Mhm.
just for honor. And so I didn't enjoy that. It was just one of those things of you could have just scratched this man, like take off a fingernail, something. You didn't. He said he knew understood the purpose of the game, but he didn't understand at all.
He thought it was a game and that it was just going to be for jesting, and probably he was thinking, oh, if I completely off this guy, he can't get me back. Ha, I win.
Yeah, but you then gotta think if no other knight is going to take up their sword to fight this monster, then why would you?
I was thinking because they're all old and this dude's massive.
Well, that's a fair point.
Also why. I don't think there was much thinking in that direction, though. It was just a foil to get Gawain moving. Actually, the difference between one of the bigger differences between the poem and the book, because I did some reading on the poem after,
Let
is
me
that
stop you right there. We are now getting into spoiler territory, and you have now been warned. And you
Caution.
can go on ahead. Yeah, caution, proceed at your
awesome.
own peril, all
Um,
that crap. Before they spoil any more of it, you guys go on ahead.
so from the beginning of the movie, we find out that Gawain's mom is this witch, and she's kind of orchestrating, and she was the one who summoned the Green Knight. That's how they made it, set it up, and they didn't do it as clearly throughout the movie, but it was intended that she was like pulling the strings of everything that was happening. The mother was Morgana from the Arthurian tales, who is Arthur's sister.
Yes.
Who were always at odds. In the poem, I don't believe that Morgana was Gawain's mom, but they just made it that way in this movie. And the director spoke about like, yeah, he wanted to make it different if he wanted to have a modern retelling or just his own retelling of it, which is fine. But in the poem, she comes in the very last part and is like, I was controlling this whole thing. Ha ha ha. Screw you, Arthur. And that's not how it was in this one. And the director described it as the story that ended up becoming of just this messy relationship between mother and son, where the driving force of the mom for doing this witchcraft oriented master plot was driven by her desire to get fame for her son, but also it put him in danger. So it was just he just described it as messy. He did that. It was on purpose. It was not supposed to make sense. It was supposed to be just this fantastical tale.
I will say that's the one thing where it didn't make sense to me. I was like, why did the mom decide to basically send her son to die and make
Yeah.
that all plausible? And it's just like it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense considering
Yeah.
that she seemed to really love her son.
Yeah, it was
Just-
a
it did-
manic. Her character was based off of just being this manic, crazy mom who's also low-key evil. Her son wanted to be this famed knight of legend, so she made that possible, even at the risk of death. But her own like back of the mind to make her feel not guilty was giving him this stash at the very beginning, which is supposed to protect him, and that's how she reconciled it with herself.
I did enjoy the ending of the movie with him running away from the Green Knight, living out his life, and then realizing it's all just in his head. It was just a dream, pretty much. I really enjoyed that. To me, that was a really unique ending, and that was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole movie.
Yeah, the last 10-minute montage without any dialogue was my favorite.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah,
just
that was-
well filmed.
that was to me the best part of the whole movie, and it kind of showed he could live his whole life with that one regret and just waiting for death pretty much because he's given up on everything else, or just take his fate.
The whole point of him going forward and him going on this journey was to get fame and honor, or what he thought was honor. He thought if he just went on a fantastic journey and came back, he'd be a different person. He'd all of a sudden be an honorable knight, which they directly addressed at the one dude's house. I won't know his name. That was his whole idea. And the ending of it, the ending in the poem was basically the knight just kind of gave him a small little cut on his neck to kind of like tease him and make him feel ashamed about his like false bravery and honor that he had, and then just let him go. And it was just kind of a anticlimactic ending of just utter defeat. And so this director gave him more of, I guess, not a happy ending, but a redemption ending where you weren't happy that he died, but you were happy with the decision, or I was happy with the decision he made at the end, where he was like, no, this is my choice. This is the path I put myself on.
Well, the thing was, he didn't technically, we don't even know if he did kill him. I mean, he just.
No, yeah, we didn't see that.
I mean, for all we know, he could have just run his finger across the neck. It could have pricked his neck, and that was his punishment.
It was definitely left up to interpretation. It was just
100%.
implied.
And usually I don't really enjoy those, but this movie did do it well.
Yeah, that whole scene was just it was a paralleled what if scenario, where earlier in the beginning of the movie where Gawain was jumped by bandits and he was tied up and you saw a skeleton, that was the what if scenario if he just decides to lie there and die, instead of rushing forward and trying to escape and run. So that's the what if future he saw for himself there. And then the montage we saw was his what if scenario if he just ran, and it was just filled with shame and guilt, and just this whole life that he won was all because built on the lie and cowardice he expressed. So it wasn't worth it. But that's for the beginning of the movie and the end of the movie. There's a whole hogwash of stuff that happens throughout the whole middle of it.
It really is. What was your favorite out of everything in that middle?
The bandits were fun. The ghost was interesting. I think it has to be the mansion with the hunter and the lady. I forget. The man has a title.
Metallic Day Desert.
Something. Yeah. Mr. B. We learned that the Green Knight is actually the Lord B that he runs into, and the lady that the temptress is Morgana, which adds another disgusting layer into this movie because it would be his mom.
I have to correct you on that. It is not the lady, it is the blind old lady.
Blind old lady, thank you. There you go.
I was about to say, because now you just blew my mind, Andrew, and how it's really disgusting.
No,
gotcha.
And in the poem, it actually has the lady advancing on him, not him advancing on the lady, which is the difference.
I mean, he did, but he always turned away because he said that's not what.
No, I saw it as she was like clearly advancing on him.
I mean, he did pretty much follow her to her tower, whatever you want to call it, and then turned around and walked off. I mean, he did admit he thought about it, but it was mostly just her advancing on him.
Yeah. He was seduced.
Yes.
And I think in the poem it says that he was still tempted, but he decided it was more honorable not to than to shame the whole household in doing that action. Now in the poem, he takes the sash from the lady and not from his mom. Because his mom, I don't even know where his mom shows up. I don't think his mom even shows up in the poem.
No. So his mom isn't a part of the poem. They just decided to combine the character of Morgana and the fact that she was Arthur's sister and that Gawain was Arthur's nephew. They just decided to combine those two relationships into one.
I mean, it makes it easier to explain. So, I mean, I'll take that.
I will also say in the poem, the main reason for the whole thing was to kind of for Morgan Le Fay to get back at Queen Guinevere and to worry her to death, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And it was intended for King Arthur to go on this journey instead of Gawain.
Gotcha.
But it was mainly for her to be worried about the whole thing and to worry her to death. Which there's a whole reason as to why they have a feud. It'll take up most of your time, but it's interesting.
Usually the story of King Arthur and his family is very interesting.
I was maybe over analyzing what they were trying to do throughout the movie. Like I was super interested in like the mansion when like he was being seduced, and when he finally was, I was like, he's fighting so hard for this image of honorable knight that he thinks it is. but he really doesn't know what it is, and so he's utterly failing, and he's not going to learn until he's at his death's door, which eventually happened.
And I'll be honest, he failed in every way you can think of in trying to portray this honorable knight. It started from the very beginning when he left. Didn't wish his lover, I guess that's what you would call her, the one that gave him the bell,
Mhm.
Yeah.
saying that he would come back for her or anything like that. Just stood there awkwardly in silence.
Did you guys notice that his peasant lover and the lady that seduced him were the same actress?
What? Wait,
They
wait,
were
wait,
the,
wait.
they were the same actress.
Hold up.
Yeah, looking back at it now, thinking about it, yeah, they do have similar features. I mean,
Different hair, different makeup,
makeup
dress, and
and
everything, but same
yeah,
actress.
yeah, no.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The commentary on that was that this lady was his ideal woman, because he already had his ideal woman, but because of differences in birth, differences in like standing, it would have been impossible to be together later down the line if he returned. So there up comes this lady who is exactly what he wants, but now it's someone who can match his standing.
So you have it starting out with that, which I understand, the standing, the stature, and everything. But still,
Wasn't she also in a whorehouse in
I
the
don't.
first scene?
Yes, but I don't know if that's just where she
Maybe it
lived.
could have been a hostel that people just frequented. I don't know.
I mean,
They
that's what
never
it
went.
made it. That's what it made it seem like,
Well,
at least to me.
they never specified. It could have just been where she lived, and there was a lot of that stuff for
It could.
peasants
It could
getting
have.
money.
Yeah.
So we can't rule out the possibility.
They could have
But
just been playing Uno. Who knows?
But that is what it appeared.
yeah,
It really did.
and then you had the kid, the bandits, and he asked for money in return of information. At first, didn't really want to give him money, and then was like, "Why not?" Gave him money.
That was the
And
mistake. That was the proof that he had money.
pretty much. And then you have
I mean, he
the
was already
Phantom.
sending them that way anyway. So I mean, it really
Yeah,
didn't.
pretty much.
They
And
were
then you
still
had.
gonna rob him anyway. He still had a helmet, still had a
I
shield,
mean,
a
he still
sword.
appeared like a knight.
Yeah.
And horses back then would sell for a lot of money, especially a knight's horse,
That's
because
true.
they were bred to be able to do pretty much anything. Then you had the Phantom, and he asked, "What do I get in return?" Which is like the least knightly thing you can do.
Granted, though, he's not a knight, which I think they make that very clear that he's not a knight yet. Well,
The
I mean, they already said it in the thing that he wasn't a knight yet, or that he wasn't anywhere close to a knight.
okay,
He was just the nephew of the king, and which I have a little bit of a problem with because he doesn't look anything like he's from England. Neither does the mom, but it's neither here nor there. That's just one minor thing.
I mean, no, you're not wrong technically. By
Along with
back then,
what's her face? Saint Winifred.
However, that Saint Winifred was a real person.
I know Saint
yes.
Winifred was a real
Yeah.
person.
Actually, I'm gonna
Which
pull
which
it
was
up.
that was just something cool that I learned from this.
Yeah, that part was the one of the side quests that at least made sense to me once I read up about it, because at that point I know it like happened in like 7th century, 8th century England when that happened, or when she was beheaded, but the cult would have been the following during the 12th century, which was when King Arthur was mostly written about at that time anyway, so it kind of made sense as to why that would follow suit.
Wow,
So
you did your history pacing.
yeah, well, that was the first part that interested me. It's like, why this little detour? It made no sense. And I was like, that don't make no sense, but it's interesting. You know,
She's from Welsh.
yeah,
She's Welsh.
yes and no. It does and doesn't make sense, but I mean, if you want to go that way, I mean, you can. But also, the naked lady giants in the middle of the Smoky Mountains doesn't really make much sense either. But hey,
I didn't get that part at all. I didn't see the significance to that at all.
I think it just plays into the fantastical nature of A Knight's
The
Tale.
magical.
yeah,
Yeah.
But why were they all women though?
Well, you only
They
get
were-
to see one up close. There was another one in the background that was holding what I assume was a babe, but
I thought all I saw was women. I didn't think I saw any dudes,
well,
but I could very well be
you only
wrong.
saw one up close. The other ones were kind of covered in what I would assume would be the clouds at that altitude.
Yeah, but I also only saw their figures from that, and they all looked very much this. It looked like they were just copying
They
the
could
same
have.
figure.
They
And
could have.
so, I mean, that's great to save CGI, but
I thought it was just neat. I thought it just looked cool.
I mean,
it was
to some
interesting.
extent it did look cool, but to some extent it made you ask, why is this here? So I'm not saying it didn't look cool. I'm just like, why put that in? Like,
I mean that's the whole purpose of
we're
this movie,
limited on
Payson.
time,
The
and
whole thing is why. Then you have the
the Lord
and
and the lady, right? I'm assuming
and
that's who you're
I
talking about.
understood the enchantress's purpose. The blind woman was just really just weird. I guess she had more purpose in the poem than she did in the movie. I didn't get that connection at all in the movie. And then the huntsman or the hunter, his what he took as his gift really caught me off guard.
Yeah, no, I was expecting like a kiss from the on the head or kiss on the cheek. Nope, just straight up on the lips. Just
And the thing was, he didn't seem phased by it. He was like, "Just don't touch me," and I'm like,
oh no, the Lord
"Okay."
didn't seem phased by it at all. The knight was like in
No, I
complete
was talking
shock.
about. Well, his face didn't really look like that. He
It was
looked
just
like
like,
the
let's not
same
ever
thing.
talk about this again, please.
It just that one took me aback a little bit. I did enjoy the fox you get to see throughout pretty much the whole movie, or at least the whole time he's on his journey up until he gets to the river.
Yeah,
I did like enjoy watching that. Did the fox have any significance in the poem, or is that
I
specific
don't
to the
even think the
movie?
fox was in the poem.
Okay.
I think the only thing about a fox is when the Lord returns with a fox when he exchanges with Gawain for the third time, the third day, and he gives him the three kisses. Three kisses. It doesn't say where, at least not on Wiki. It doesn't say where in the synopsis, but he says nothing about the sash that he was given by the lady. So that's the only thing I could see
Okay.
about the fox. But then again, the fox didn't show up until Saint Winifred. Makes sense as to why it's not mentioned until that point, because that didn't happen in
Yeah,
the poem.
but I did enjoy the fox. I thought that was unique. You get to see it go with him along the journey. Very odd because you wouldn't foxes aren't usually like that, but it was this talking fox, so I'll take it.
It was a talking
There,
fox for 2 minutes.
First off, foxes don't, to my knowledge, really howl.
Yeah, that's more coyotes and wolves.
I mean, they can because they're part of the dog family, but that's not usually their go-to.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing that in the Fox and the Hound, but I could be wrong. That caught you off guard, didn't it?
Not really, because that's what I was basing my information on. If you look here in my notes,
Well, I can't see it, so I really can't look at your notes.
but other than that, yeah, I have nothing else to say about this movie except just it was unique and unusual.
I'd say, like you said earlier, the baseline for the movie was there. I did like you guys had both said, I did like the burglar scene. I also did like the Lord and Lady scene that they kept from the poem, just they changed it up for whatever reason. I mean, I guess if that's what they were going for with his mom as a messy character, I'd say they nailed it because I didn't know how to take it other than a mess. So, I mean, that works, I guess, if that's what they were going for. I just thought the poem was way better. I thought the poem has more of a interesting feel to it than this movie did. I guess I wouldn't have minded it as much if they just also paid respects to the poem.
Or if anything, just explain things a little bit better.
Yeah. Now I will say there were some great acting in here. I thought the guy who did King Arthur and the lady who also did Queen Guinevere did a phenomenal job. I don't like how they were like, look at all these legends around you at the beginning of the thing, and then all of a sudden the Green Knight comes in, and then nobody wants to stand up to him. It's like, yeah,
Now,
look at all these wonderful people.
now
It's like,
the
yeah,
thing was that
now I'm in
supposed to
danger.
be the round table or no?
It looked like it was a round feast, not so much a round table.
Because if it was the round table, I think they had a bit too many people there.
I don't think it was a round table. I think
Because,
it was more so the Christmas feast.
but still, I
because
would
yeah,
think.
Gowan wouldn't have been there if it was the round table. He was in a knight of the round table.
Yeah, he wasn't even
Well,
a knight.
yeah, I'm sure some of them were members of the round table,
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I
which
believe
would baffle
Merlin was
me
in it for 2 seconds.
which would baffle me even more why one of them wouldn't pick up their sword. But that's beyond the point. If anything, they understood the game. While obviously the main character did not.
Because
Also,
I
it's a
mean,
forest monster. It's a man, he puts down his axe, and mold and grass and whatever you want to say grows up around the axe.
yeah,
So, would you be scared? Yes. Yes, I would.
it's just essentially it's a knight version of Groot.
I was going to say swamp thing, but that works too.
Nah, Swamp Thing would have been a little bit cooler though, in my opinion.
If you're a fan of the original poem, I don't know, you may enjoy this. It depends on how you view retellings and adaptations. If you like just good cinematography and thought-provoking movies, yeah, you might like this. You like Alice in Wonderland, you're looking for a movie like Alice in Wonderland, yeah, you might like this. If you like coherent plots and no plot holes, you'll go
not for you.
see Shang-Chi or something.
I did like that the character had to somewhat grow a spine by the end of the movie, but I would have liked to have seen him at least go from not having a spine at the beginning, like he kind of showed earlier, to going all this way to growing a spine. I think that would have been a better way of making that hour and a half like middle portion of the movie where nothing's going on, where the plot isn't going anywhere. I think that would have been a better use of the time that they wanted the movie to go for. I think that would have been way better because it was obvious the character didn't have a spine at the beginning of the thing.
Well, with that being said, all right, well, thank you everyone for sticking with us as we explained this movie. And next week, we're going to do a throwback. We're going to do an older movie, and we're going to do one of my favorite movies. I really enjoy this movie, Zombieland. Payson hasn't seen it. It's just a synopsis. It's just a comedy zombie movie.
I love how you say throwback or it's an old movie and it's
It's
2009.
I was going to say, well, okay, lesson here.